Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. And today it's kind of a special treat for me because I'm going to do a video on the legendary Seattle punk band The Living. And they were around from 1981 to 1982. And my connection with them is I was their manager. And so I spent well over a year with the band in both their first incarnation and their second incarnation. And it was great for me to basically see almost every show they played and have them all be my buddies. But aside from that, the Living recorded a demo in 1982, and it languished in the vaults for 40 years. I've had a copy all these years, and I knew how incredible it was. And about two years ago, a little over 2 years ago, it was finally released on the Loose Groove label. Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam, his label. Duff ended up playing it for him, and he was blown away, as well he should. Anybody I ever played it for was blown away. And whenever I'd talk to people in record stores about Seattle punk bands, they'd talk to me about how great these bands were. And I said, well, you should hear The Living. They were definitely the greatest of all. And so the lineup of the band was Chris Crass from the Veins on drums. And, oh, wait, he was playing guitar and vocals. Duff McKagan was the drummer. Oh, I'm getting confused. Here, let's start again. The Veins were Duff McKagan on drums and Chris Crass on guitar and vocals. But when they turned into The Living, it was Chris Crass on drums, Duff McKagan on guitar, and John Conte on vocals, and Todd Fleischman on bass. All right, now I got it straightened out. So my introduction to The Living was I knew a lot of those guys already from their other bands, including the Veins. And I went to a show one night, and here was this band, this new band, and it totally blew me away. And at the time, they had Kim Warnick from the Fastbacks on bass. So everybody in the band was pretty much buddies of mine, except for John Conte. And I walked into this room and saw this incredible band that struck me as being very much like Generation X. And the singer John Conte had all the rock moves. He was like a punk Roger Daltrey, throwing the mic around and throwing it up in the air and shimmying and shaking and everything else. So I was completely blown away. And then I went to the next show after that, and that's when I saw the band with Todd Fleischman the first time. And they packed this hall, and all the girls were going crazy. They're running up to the stage and trying to kiss John Conte, the singer. And Todd Fleischman was a powerhouse on bass and just had incredible presence. And so after that show was over and I was waiting outside, the band approached me and asked me to be their manager. And I told them I hadn't had much experience, but I had some connections, and I'd give it a whirl. And so I signed up. And so for the next year or so, I went out and saw all their shows, and just a powerhouse band. Originally they were influenced by Generation X, but at one point, Chris Crass was out of the band on drums, and they brought in the mighty Greg Gilmore. Of course, everybody knows him now from Mother Love Bone, but his addition to the band really kicked it up quite a few notches, and they became as powerful a band as any band that's ever been in Seattle. Definitely one of the more powerful bands around at that time, and they had chops. And John Conte could actually sing, and Todd Fleischman and Greg Gilmore's rhythm section was probably the most powerful in town. Greg Gilmore had chops to spare. He had just moved out here from Gig Harbor. And so the writing in the band was really strong as well. Originally, they did a lot of pop punk numbers, including great covers of Mr. You're a Better Man Than I by the Yardbirds, and Beg, Borrow, and Steal by the Ohio Express. And they did great versions of them. And you can hear the early version of the band. I'll post a couple live shows that I recorded below in the links. And then when Greg Gilmore joined the band, they really got a lot darker and a lot heavier. And They also did a great cover of the Sweet Ballroom Blitz. Unfortunately, there's no recordings that exist of that, but it was a real crowd pleaser. But their original material was a mix of Conti originals and Duff McKagan originals, and they complemented each other pretty well. John Conti had more of a pop sensibility, although he definitely got darker as the band went on. And Duff McKagan already just wrote classic riffs and played them with immense power. And so the band was really powerful. And I'll post the album that just got released um, below, and you can hear for yourself. There's a lot of moments that remind me of the Clash. There's a lot of moments that remind me of DOA, but just wonderful stuff. And you can't imagine my excitement after 40 years of this secret, reading about this band in Rolling Stone and Spin and all the other rock press. It was a big deal, of course, because of the presence of Duff McKagan. At the time, Duff McKagan was 17 years old and really had a hard time getting club gigs for them because they were underage. So mostly it was in rented halls and the like. But live, they were really, really wonderful, really powerful. And I have a show from that period as well that I'll post below. But so now they're legends, and I feel very fortunate and very exciting times for me getting to be friends with them and see all these shows. I mean, that was the real bread and butter for me, was actually just being able to go out and see all their shows. And so the band disbanded in '82, and Duff McKagan, of course, moved on to first a local band called 10 Minute Warning. He and Greg Gilmore hooked up with the ex-Farts members like Paul Soldier, and originally Blaine was the singer, and then they got this guy named Verwolf. But 10 Minute Warning was a fixture around Seattle for a while. And then Duff McKagan moved to LA and, of course, hooked up with Guns N' Roses. Greg Gilmore ended up moving on from the Living to 10 Minute Warning, and then he also uh, ended up in Mother Love Bone eventually. And I'll do a little self-promoting here in between Greg Gilmore being in the Living and then joining Mother Love Bone. I had a band with him called Chubby Children with Seattle guitar legend Garth Brandenburg and Steve Marcus on bass, who ended up in another local Seattle band called the Pickets. And in 1983, Chubby Children got together and were pretty extreme, had a lot more psychedelic and progressive elements than a lot of local bands, but sadly didn't really get off the ground. But there's other chapters in that band's history. So anyway, Greg Gilmore ended up going from the Living to 10 Minute Warning, and then Chubby Children, and then Mother Love Bone. And so everybody knows about Mother Love Bone, and everybody knows about Guns N' Roses. So that's a big part of the story. But I'm glad now that the Living are no longer a well-kept secret, and they have taken their place in Seattle rock history. And again, they weren't just a great local band; they were just a great band that I would put toe to toe with punk bands all over the globe, and they were that good. And you'll hear it if you haven't heard them. Uh, I'll post the album below along with the other rarities, and you can find out for yourself. But wow, The Living. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.